I never thought my daughter would say those words to me. Not after everything I had done for them. Not after everything I had sacrificed. And certainly not at her mother's funeral. I had just buried the love of my life. All I wanted was to have my children around me. But instead, she stepped back, looked me in the eyes, and said, "You destroyed my childhood." Then she turned around and walked out of my house. I am Reginald Jackson, 65 years old, retired, widowed, successful, and possibly the loneliest man alive. That last word still feels strange in my mouth. Because for most of my life, loneliness was a luxury I did not have time for. I was busy building something, busy winning, busy climbing, busy proving to the world, to my enemies, to myself that I was not the poor boy who started with nothing. Some people called me ruthless. Others called me driven. A few, behind my back, called me a shark. And I will be honest with you. I did not mind because sharks survive. There is a term I came across much later in life. Emotional avoidance. It is when a man convinces himself that providing for the family is the same as connecting. When a man convinces himself that money can replace presence, structure can replace softness, success can silence emotional needs. For most of my life, I did not think I was avoiding anything. I thought I was doing what men are supposed to do, which was provide, protect, and as for feelings, those were optional. Or at least, that is what I told myself. I retired from the corporate world at 58. Not because I had to, but because I could. I had made enough money to live comfortably for 3 lifetimes. I had investments, real estate, stocks, and international accounts. I had worked hard, but more importantly, I had worked smart. While other men slept, I negotiated deals. While other fathers attended school plays, I attended boardroom meetings. And every sacrifice I made, I told myself the same thing: this is for my family. That sentence became my shield, my justification, my excuse. I milked every opportunity that came my way. Every promotion, every bonus, every connection. I squeezed life like a lemon until there was nothing left on the table. Because I had grown up watching my father die poor. And I swore on his grave that my children would never know that kind of struggle. My children grew up in comfort. They got private schools, summer camps, international vacations. None of them graduated with student loans. Not a single dollar of debt. My sons, Michael and Daniel, both went to top universities. They graduated with degrees in engineering and finance. They now have careers that most people only dream about. And my daughter, Anna, my baby girl. She was the pride of my life. She was brilliant, strong-willed, and independent. She earned scholarships, even though she did not need them. That was her personality. She never wanted handouts. Even from me. After I retired, life slowed down. And for the first time in decades, I had time. Time to breathe. Time to rest. Time to live. And most importantly, time for my wife, Eddie. My partner of 42 years. My anchor. My forgiveness. We started traveling the world together. Not the cheap kind of travel. Not the rushed tourist trips. No. We did it properly. We went on luxury cruises with Viking Ocean Cruises, Regent Seven Seas Cruises, and Silversea Cruises. We sailed through the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, and the Norwegian fjords. We visited places we had dreamed about for years. Bora Bora, Santorini, Dubai, Cape Town, and Kyoto. More than once. Sometimes twice. Even 3 times. Because when you finally have money and time at the same moment, you hold on to it. Those were the happiest years of my life. Until the diagnosis. Cancer. Stage 4. Aggressive. The doctor did not sugarcoat it. He spoke slowly, carefully. Like a man delivering a death sentence. "We will do everything we can," he said. But I heard the truth behind his words. I heard that hope was thin. Very thin. That was the day my priorities changed. Completely. I pulled out all the stops. Money was no longer an asset. It was a weapon. I hired the best oncologists, the best specialists, the best hospitals. We traveled to treatment centers across the country. Experimental therapies, private care, second opinions. I researched everything. Clinical trials, immunotherapy, nutrition plans. I became obsessed with finding ways to preserve her life. Because when the person you love is dying, control becomes an illusion you cling to. Eventually, the treatment stopped working. That was when the doctors recommended hospice care. The word felt like surrender, but I refused to let her suffer. So I got the best hospice care money could buy. Private nurses, pain management specialists, comfort care. And I stayed with her. Every day. Every night. Sometimes I slept in a chair beside her bed. Sometimes I held her hand until morning. I made sure her final days were filled with dignity and love. She passed away surrounded by all of us. Our children flew in from different parts of the country. No matter the cost. No matter the distance. They were there. Michael held her left hand. Daniel held her right. While Anna stood near the foot of the bed. Quiet. Still. Watching. I leaned close to Eddie and whispered, "I love you, Eddie." Her lips moved slightly. And she whispered back, "I know." Those were her last words to me. Years before her illness, I had made a decision. A conscious decision to change because my success had come at a cost. And I knew it. I had not always been a good husband. Or a good father. In fact, there was a time when I was neither. I worked late. I missed birthdays. I ignored phone calls. I was harsh. Demanding. Emotionally distant. And yes, I had affairs. More than one. And I burn with regret whenever I remember. There is something people do not tell you about regret. That it does not come all at once. Rather, it comes in waves. In the quiet moments. Like late in the night, when random memories hit you without warning. Sometimes, I would sit in my office, long after everyone had gone home. I would replay various moments in my head. Missed birthdays. Ignored calls. Harsh words. And I would ask myself, was it worth it? And the answer has never been as clear as I wanted it to be. But at some point in my life, something shifted inside me. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the realization that money cannot hug you back. So I turned a new leaf. I started coming home earlier. Cooking dinner on Sundays. Attending family gatherings. I apologized. Repeatedly. Not just with words, but with actions. There was a Sunday, I will never forget that day. I woke up early and cooked breakfast. Eggs. Toast. Pancakes. I even set the table, something I had never done before. When the children came downstairs, they looked confused. Michael laughed and asked nervously, "What's happening? Are we expecting guests?" I smiled and asked them to sit down. Anna hesitated, then sat slowly. We all ate in silence at first. Then I said, "I want to do better." No one spoke, so I continued. "I know I have not always been present. But I am trying now." Daniel nodded and Michael said, "We can see that, Dad." But Anna? She just stared at her plate and said nothing. That silence stayed with me longer than any words. As they grew older and left the nest, I continued making amends at any given opportunity. I attended their graduations. I helped Anna move into her first apartment. I called them regularly, just to ask how they were doing. Not to give instructions, not to criticize. Just to listen. And slowly, they forgave me. My sons, especially, vocalized their forgiveness. One evening, I sat them down in the living room. I looked them in the eye, and I said, I was not the father you deserved. I know that now. And I am sorry. Michael nodded. Daniel wiped his eyes. Then Michael said something I will never forget. Dad, you were hard on us. But we forgive you. That moment felt like redemption. But there was one person whose explicit forgiveness never came. Anna. I started noticing the change after she left home for university. She stopped calling regularly. Stopped visiting frequently. She stopped sharing details about her life. At family dinners, she spoke politely but never warmly. She answered questions but never volunteered information. She just kept her emotions locked behind a wall. I tried to bridge the gap. I really did. I sent birthday gifts, called on holidays, and visited just to surprise her. But our every interaction always felt formal. It felt like talking to a stranger. There was a time I called her. It was her birthday. She picked up. Hello. Anna, it's Dad, I said. There was a pause. Thank you for calling, she said. Her voice was polite, almost too polite. I asked her, how are you celebrating? Oh, I'm spending the day with friends. I could come by, I said jokingly. There was another pause, then she replied, no, it's okay. I forced a laugh and asked, are you sure? Yes. Then there was silence. I tried one last time. Anna, is everything okay between us? She exhaled and replied, I'm doing fine and I have enough money to entertain my friends on my birthday. That's the most important thing, right? Her words hit me like a punch. My throat became dry. I tried again by saying, help me understand. She replied, as a good girl, tell me what you want to hear and I'd say it. There was another silence, then she said, goodbye, Father. Then I heard a click. She had hung up. That conversation left me confused and frustrated. One day, I asked Eddie about Anna. We were sitting on the patio, watching the sunset. I said, something is wrong with Anna. Eddie sighed, then she said quietly, give her time. But I pressed further. What is she upset about? Eddie looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, she is still healing. Healing from what? I had wondered. That question haunted me. Another time, I confronted Eddie again. We were in bed, with the lights off and the quiet hum of the night. Tell me the truth, I said. What happened with Anna? Eddie was quiet for a long time. Then she said softly, she remembers things differently. I frowned and asked, what does that mean? It means, she said, turning toward me, that while you were building a life for us, she was living through something else. I sat up and asked, what are you saying? Eddie hesitated, then whispered, she needed you in ways you didn't show up. I got defensive and almost shouted, I was working for this family. I know, Eddie said gently. But children don't measure love in income, Reggie. That sentence. I did not fully understand it then. But I do now. Which brings me to today, the day of Eddie's funeral, when my life shattered. Grief does something strange to families. It does not always bring people together. Sometimes, it exposes everything that was already broken. Psychologists call it emotional unmasking. It is the idea that after a death in a family, people stop pretending. They stop filtering their words, censoring their actions. They say the things they have been holding in for years. I did not know about emotional unmasking before Eddie's death. If I had, maybe I would have prepared myself. The funeral was over. The burial complete. The reception was finished and guests had gone home, and silence was setting in. Condolences had been delivered and the food cleared. The only people left in the house were my children, the caterers and the house staff, and me. I stood in the living room, exhausted. I was emotionally drained and physically numb. That is what grief does to a man, it empties him. I saw Anna standing near the door. her bag in her hand, and her expression unreadable. So I walked toward her, slowly and carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. I opened my arms. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said softly. Then I leaned in to hug her. She stepped back. Fast and sudden, like I had burned her. But her voice came out loud, almost too loud. "Don't touch me." The room froze. My sons stopped talking. The caterers turned their heads. The air even felt heavy. I swallowed hard. Confused. I asked her, "Anna, what's wrong?" That was when the storm broke. She looked straight into my eyes and said, "I don't want to see you again." The sentence landed like a hammer. I blinked. I was certain I had misheard. "What?" Her voice grew stronger, colder, more deliberate. "I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear from you. And I don't want anything to do with this family ever again." Her eyes stayed locked on mine, burning. With Mom gone, I finally accept that I have always been alone. The room went silent, completely silent. I felt my chest tighten. "What are you talking about?" I asked. My voice was shaking now. Anna laughed. But there was no humor in it. "You really don't know, do you?" Michael stepped in. "Anna, this is not the time." "No," she snapped. "This is exactly the time." She turned back to me. "You think paying for schools and vacations make you a good father?" "I did my best," I insisted. "Your best?" she repeated, her voice breaking. Then she said quietly, "You were never there when it mattered." She paused, then said, "You never gave me safety." My chest tightened. My breathing became shallow. And I felt I was free-falling, which are my symptoms of a panic attack. It happens when my nervous system goes into the fight or flight mode. But at this time, I could not fight and I could not run. So I stood there, frozen. She stretched her hand to pull her suitcase closer. Then she delivered the final blow. "I hope you live the same sad and traumatic life that I lived growing up under your care." She picked up her bag, turned toward the door, and walked out, without looking back. My daughter, my baby girl, gone, just like that. After the door closed, I stood there, still, numb. Because in my mind, I was a man who had sacrificed everything for his family. But in my daughter's mind, I was the father who failed her. And I did not know which perspective to live with. That night, I sat alone in the living room. The house felt different. It felt larger. It felt colder and more quiet. I looked around at everything I had acquired over time. The house, the land, the furniture, the art, the memories. And for the first time, none of it meant anything to me. Because the one thing I couldn't buy, the one thing I could not fix, the one thing I could not rebuild, was the relationship with my daughter. And for the first time in my life, I realized that success does not erase the past. It only delays the reckoning. Then I saw it. A letter. On the lower part of the coffee table. It had my name on it. I stared at it for a long time. Afraid. Because something inside me knew that whatever was written in that letter was going to change everything. And as I reached for the letter that my daughter left behind, my hands trembled. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure I wanted to know the truth.